You there? The screen looks black. Are you there or not?
Ah, you bastard. Do you know what time it is here?
Well, actually, if that's a serious question, I can never really tell. I know that I think, in the future from here.
Yeah. Well, here you are.
So I need your input on something. They went for the idea, which is quite a problem actually, because I didn't have an idea. I lied about having an idea.
And this is for the podcast.
That's correct. Yeah. So I don't know. I made up and postured as though I had an idea, and
I'm good at fake ideas. I'm great at fake ideas, in fact.
I mean, I gave them a title. That could be what it's about.
Aha. Yeah, tell me about the title.
Well, I thought it would be fun to talk about creativity in a time of endless isolation, and I came up with the term performancelessness.
Performancelessness. Are you sure that's a word?
No, I'm very
serious. It's a word now.
I made a word. So that was my idea. I had a word.
So what do you have to do for this thing? They want you to just record some talking?
That part remains fairly unclear, but I figure that's the best thing to do, now that I can't leave the apartment.
They do know that a podcast doesn't involve any video, right?
Also unclear. How can we find a way to face a world in which performance is no longer possible?
Some people don't seem to be facing it very well. Even seeing all those terrible performances that people insist on doing online.
Is there a sense in which those prove my point?
Well, people have been saying that this whole global catastrophe shows things for how it really is, how they really are, variously. Shows the fragility, shows the gaps, shows the holes, shows the horror. Maybe it shows the horror of performance.
I have always felt that performance was an act of violence towards an audience.
It's funny because the audience is captive in a different way. Like normally they're captive because they're in the room and they can't get up unless they want to pull the fire alarm or step over people. Here they're not in the room, but they're captive because they're starved for performance. It's the best you can give them.
Is it possible to, in fact, not be performing?
Yes, I mean, do you mean this? All the world's a stage. There are Butlerian identities. All we can do is perform our scripts. I suppose that's probably true in some sense.
So now the only performance that occurs any longer is a sort of psychological one, where I'm
performing for ourselves.
I'm performing for myself. I'm performing myself to myself, about myself.
For yourself.
For myself. I've got very little to say to myself.
Yeah, maybe that's another thing we learn. Being with ourselves is the most horrible experience imaginable.
Yeah. All right. In full disclosure, this vague non-idea has, in fact, been taking shape in my mind for a while. This newfound retirement of sorts is a strange one. Normally, when considering what it would mean to be retired, we think of the world of our former fields carrying on in some way, just without us as participants. This is a very different situation. Not only am I no longer working or performing, but neither are any of my colleagues, anywhere on Earth. Professionals have been made hobbyists in the very livelihoods they once knew, and in our respective lockdowns, there's been a deluge of online activity, from live streaming to meticulously produced orchestral amalgams that all somehow failed to captivate me. In this holding pattern, I find my creative impulses completely adrift, seeking desperately any kind of activity to parasitize. I thought I might reach out to another old friend of mine to see if she could assist me in articulating some kind of step forward.
People like you and I who don't make recording part of our regular artistic life,
Yeah.
I think we're the most lost right now.
Yes.
Because
I agree.
you know, recording as its own art form could actually be like doing really well right now because you're having time to do that and delve into it. I think that, and it's interesting to me that the live streaming is more of a attempt to replace the live part of performance and not the recording, even though it's really closer to recording than live performance.
Yes.
Like it's closer to that. It's more of a different angle on that somehow. But I think that it also challenges the idea of or maybe it's like demanding a definition of like human, like vibe. Or like energy in a room, like human energy, like what, because that is also part of what's missing in a live stream in isolation. My tendency to not want to think of a replacement is probably why my creativity has gone into different things. Hey, my friend, look at this thing that I did with my time and my ideas. I am a creative person because I've done this. Look at it. Look. I think it was from a country pops concert I did. So it's just some recycled paper. Anyways, you do that and then you just make one cut in the middle. And basically you're like cutting like this. You get it to this point and then it's folds, right? This is a pile of photos that were garbage. A buffalo, which is, you can readily see, some sort of menu from a cafe. And it's not funny, it's just like, today's soup, my family's fireplace at Christmas with all of our stockings. And I just felt like I don't feel right about just like putting these in the garbage in the alley. This is a quote from Jenny Slate on Fame. So I took some of the photos of the parade watchers. This is my friend from music camp who like took my camera and took photos of herself. I no longer remember her name. I don't need a close-up of her face. This one is actually amazing. I don't know if you can see this couple that getting out of their car, going to a rest stop. The main photo I took was a photo of seagulls. So what's cool about this, what kind of made me excited was it gave a purpose to this like garbage that I had created. So I was feeling guilt and shame and all of this kind of stuff too.
As one should.
As one would. And then what's kind of cool about it is that because even after I worked on it, it can be done like this, presumably I can go to Staples, which is still open now, but then I could photocopy this and make a copy.
Now we're getting somewhere. Laura's right. These creative impulses don't just evaporate in our epic of performancelessness, but their mutations are a lot less predictable than we might think. It's not immediately apparent that we can just translate our creative wherewithals into online-friendly content and feel any sort of satisfaction. These impulses still long for and require infinitely more than those contexts can provide. What exactly is it about this miasma of internet material that I find so deflating?
Is it possible to perform for oneself?
I suppose it depends on how malleable your state of mind is.
That's right.
If you can transport yourself to simultaneously be the performer and the audience, which again, I think to some extent, most musicians do on a daily basis. You're always diving into something, at least when it comes to playing, practicing, working out concepts via an instrument, whether the instrument is your composition or whether it's a hands-on or your voice. I think that you're always kind of having a bit of a dual mindset. You're working through something conceptually and consciously, and then you have some faith, some degree of faith in the unconscious, the value that that process is taking you through. When you don't have an opportunity to share your work, your discoveries, your challenges with a living, breathing entity in real time, there's a real kinetic energy that's lost. Live performance to me is so valuable is because you know that it will never be repeated exactly that way again. Sorry, just to add to that though, to get back to your question, is it possible to perform for yourself? So I think there's some degree where you're tapping in to two mindsets simultaneously, but I think the true sense of abandon only happens in live performance.
Maybe it's obvious, but that is the problem. There is nothing ephemeral about playing into your phone, your computer, or a camera somewhere. So much of what a performer learns to live alongside of is that sense of awe at how whatever you put out into the world, it is always, very movingly, gone forever. Once captured, compressed, assembled, synced, and streamed, its contours become warped and unfamiliar. I propose there is an argument to be made about not, in fact, making this adaptation. I propose a much more frightening possibility that we are going to have to contend with. Most of us are very likely going to have to find something else to do for a very long time. Consider some of Middle America's favorite brands, JCPenney, Red Lobster, or P.F. Chang's, all of whom face very precarious credit risk in a situation like this. I think, similarly, many of our beloved artistic institutions may collapse and disappear forever. Furthermore, I fear this will be true for any number of my colleagues, and, quite frankly, myself. We're going to emerge from this suspended animation into a very different world. One still dotted with all the artifacts and ruins of the previous one, the one we have just left. Yet it will be one totally unrelenting in its uncanniness, and therein its ability to horrify.
How's that podcast project going?
It's I think it's done. I think I'm done with it. I'm done with it. Yeah.
Calling it. Hey.
Yeah, I'm calling it. I'm calling it complete. Here's to calling it. God, I think I end on a bit of a downer, though.
No, you never.
Yeah, no, really.
This time the rest of the world's with you, maybe.
We're all pretty much screwed, right?
I'm screwed. I'm definitely screwed.
Yeah, so am I.
That is, unless I've managed to make myself obsolete by teaching online so successfully that I never have to go into a classroom ever again, because I can just be exploited from a distance forever.
Yes, that is the hopefulness, isn't it? I can still find ways to be exploited, perhaps just from a distance.
From a distance. Do you remember that, did you read that Arundhati Roy piece? You know, the thing everybody's talking about where she says the pandemic is a portal, except 98% of it is just an elucidation of how screwed we are, followed by the pandemic is a portal, we could use this as a pivot point to find a better world. Yeah, but how? But how are we going to do that?
Okay, so it's not just me then.
Not just you. No.
Oh, well, that's actually kind of soothing. Okay, I think that's probably enough.